Good morning, everyone. Welcome to today's webinar. My name is Esme Villarreal. I am the very proud president and CEO for your local chamber, the Brownsville Chamber of Commerce. Welcome to the second webinar of our series, Brownsville Beyond. This series will navigate to the reopening of Texas economy by addressing potential challenges that we will be facing throughout the different phases. Such topics throughout our 10 scheduled webinars include restaurant restart in collaboration with the Texas Restaurant Association, the future landscape of education, healthcare in the age of COVID-19, understanding the economic impact of COVID with Texas Comptroller of Public Accounts, Glenn Hager, and facing the realities of underserved communities during COVID-19. Again, we thank you for joining us in today's live discussion, Restaurant Restart. With us today, we have Ana Tauzin. She's the Chief Revenue and Innovation Officer for the Texas Restaurant Association. At the Texas Restaurant Association, Ana leads the charge of shaking things up at the 82-year-old institution. She heads up all business development, marketing, and communication strategy, and also creates new member value through unique events and education. Additionally, she is driven to bring more restaurant technology to the state of Texas with a unique partnership and innovative programming. Her passion for food and restaurants run deep. Previously, Ana was the head of innovation and entrepreneurial services at the National Restaurant Association. She served to connect restaurant operator members of the association with new technology, operations, and marketing concepts. This including directing the association's new innovation outreach programs and building relationships with high-tech, finance, and payment companies, startups, venture capitalists, and curious entrepreneurs. Her projects included the Restaurant Innovation Summit, Startup Alley, and the Silicon Valley Tech Tour. Ana is frequently a speaker on innovation and disruption in the restaurant space, including tech trends, mobile payments, food delivery, tableside tablets, BOH or BOC inventory and staff management platforms, food tech startups, and online reservations. Previous to her career in associations, Ana was a web and social media editor for JLab, a nonprofit journalism research center and startup incubator. Ana serves on the advisory board for SXSW Interactive, She's active in the food and tech community and was a volunteer chef at Miriam's Kitchen, a nonprofit. Also, she has a Master of Arts in Journalism from American University and a Bachelor of Arts in Mass Communication for the Texas State University. Ana is a native Texan and enjoys motorcycles, restaurants, obviously, and seeing movies with people who understand the importance of getting to the theater early. I cannot agree with you more. Yes. Get there early. You have to enjoy the movie. Don't talk while you're at the movies. Eat your popcorn and have fun. Ana, thank you so much. Such a great, long, of course, bio, and I think there's so much more to talk about you. In the past minutes before we started today's conversation, we had the ability to talk to you about, our current existing situation throughout the state of Texas. We're so appreciative of getting to finally get to meet you face to face. I think, as we spoke earlier, one of the things that COVID-19 has really shown us is the ability to reconnect with everyone, through different platforms, and really utilizing and enhancing the use of the internet. I think now we're all Zoom, gurus, except me. You can tell because sometimes I don't know where I'm seeing through the presentation, but we're all learning and we're all in this together. Again, we're so happy that we have the ability to connect with you and hear more about what's happening in the restaurant industry to your beautiful state of Texas. Before we begin with your presentation, some housekeeping rules. We do have a chat available for Q&A. We do have a Q&A session at the end of today's presentation. And we're also live on Facebook. Please feel welcome to address any questions through the Facebook chat and or through Zoom, as we have both platforms today. Ana, good morning. Bienvenida a Brownsville. Thank you so much for joining us.
Good morning. Thank you, Esme and Danielle. That was such a wonderful introduction. I didn't realize you guys were going to read my bio like that. I would have given you a much shorter one. That was a lot. But thank you so much for the warm intro. And I'm really excited to be with you guys today. I regularly make trips to the Rio Grande Valley. Brownsville is a little farther than normally that when I go, but I will definitely make a point to come see you guys next time. It's a wonderful place. You'll have some great restaurants. Congratulations on the Vera's Backyard Barbecue being nominated as a James Beard Award finalist. That's very exciting. I hope it's good. I haven't tried it before. I'm sure it is. But I'm delighted to be with you guys today. Unfortunately, I have some sad news to report, and we'll get into some of the numbers related to where we are when it comes to restaurants in the state of Texas. And if you guys want me to be able to drill into the numbers in the RGV and Brownsville specifically later, we can definitely do some of that too. I thought what might be good first is to take a look at where we were pre-pandemic, right? What did the restaurant industry look like before all of this happened? And whenever I talk about the food service industry, it's not just restaurants like full service restaurants or drive-through restaurants. It includes everywhere you would get food. So that could be a bar that includes food. That could be a university cafeteria. It could even include the prison system that serves food, stadiums that have food. A lot of that makes up our food service industry. Before the pandemic started, we had just shy of 50,000 food and drinking establishments in the state of Texas. That's a lot. It contributed $70.6 billion in sales every year, which of course means that it is a huge tax driver and income area for the state. And then we had about 1.3, almost 1.4 million employees in the state. That typically represents about 10% of the state works in food service, which is the second largest employer in the state. We're second only to healthcare. So food and healthcare go hand in hand. And in fact, they often help each other. I'm sure you guys have had many experiences with that. Whenever people need things, healthcare workers are the front line and restaurants are the front line. And anytime our first responders need something, restaurants are there to open their doors and give as much as possible. They give to first responders, they give to healthcare workers, they give to the little league teams that need a sponsorship. They give pretty much wherever they can. And so this is really our time to start giving back to restaurants. That's what my appeal is going to be today. It's also important to know that the share of the food dollar mainly came from restaurants. So this only happened in the past few years. There for a while, restaurants versus grocery is where the split was, and people were going about half and half to grocery versus restaurant. And then it finally tipped over a few years ago to service more restaurants. So more people were getting food from restaurants than they were grocery, which is why whenever this pandemic happened and restaurants had to shut down, you saw a run on grocery, right? And that's why you saw a lot of grocery stores running out of products. It's because people were used to going and getting their food from restaurants. And so all of a sudden you had this complete lopsided food system, and now people were going to grocery stores. So that's important to keep in mind too. We are appealing to the federal government right now, actually, to allow SNAP benefits to be used at restaurants. We think that's extremely important. A lot of people, can't go to grocery stores, don't have the room or the income to buy in bulk to stuff their pantry. They need to be able to have access to good, healthy food whenever they need it, and that's what restaurants can provide. So I'll talk a little more now about where we are now. And this is very, very dire. This is the measurement that we have from March 1st to April 19th. April 19th, was almost a month ago. And so we know that the numbers are worse now. In our worst case projections, the TRA's worst case projections, we actually thought we'd only lose about 500,000 jobs in the state. That's already been surpassed. We have lost 688,000 jobs in the state because of COVID-19 and the closures around there. We think we're probably tipping over 700,000 jobs lost at this point. We also know that between March 1st and April 19th, those sales were gone. $4.2 billion in sales that restaurants would have had are completely gone. They won't be getting those back, which is why we're asking our local municipalities, city councils, mayors, whomever can help to help alleviate some of the stress related to tax payments and rent forgiveness for restaurants, because they don't have these sales coming in. As you know, the restaurant business is a very slim margin business. They don't usually have a lot of savings built up. What savings they have typically go to their employees whenever something like this happens, and a lot of those savings are gone as well. We know that that about 2% of restaurants have closed their doors permanently now, but that is a very low number. Our estimates have between 25 and 30% of independent restaurants will not recover from this. They will not reopen their doors. I really hope that, fine restaurants like Vera's in Brownsville will come back from this, but maybe a James Beard Award isn't enough to help someone survive. And we've seen that around the country as well. The amazing thing though, and I want to underscore this because Esme brought this up too, is that restaurants are resilient. Restaurants have tenacity and grit, and they are entrepreneurs at heart, and they will find a way to make it work, which is really amazing. And we actually were able to work with Governor Abbott's office to get some executive orders signed to allow for restaurants to do some of these innovative things. For example, we had already passed legislation back in 2019 that allowed restaurants to deliver alcohol in delivery orders, but we were able to convince Governor Abbott and his staff to allow restaurants to do to-go alcohol as well. So now you can buy beer and wine and manufacture sealed drinks from like a distillery to go as well, which is really nice because now you can go and get like a margarita kit. I did that the other day. You got like a frozen margarita and a little bottle of tequila and you just mix it up. It's perfect. Perfect. Well, no matter what time of day it is, I guess, we're all working at this weird time. And then also a lot of restaurants have pivoted to start offering markets. I mentioned because of the share of the food dollar, people, grocery stores were worried. They needed our help. And so restaurants were able to step up because they still had access to supply chain lines that would provide things like toilet paper and paper towels, as well as bulk products like milk and eggs and bread. And a lot of restaurants are doing that now, those basic items, as well as some value add items like homemade pasta or homemade sauces that they make in their restaurant. It's fantastic. It's honestly a really amazing time to see some of the innovation that restaurants are able to come up with. And when I ask restaurants that are doing this, if they want to keep that, many of them say they do. I think it's created a new additional revenue line for them, but it's also given them a place in the community that they're known for something, right? And so that's really, really helpful. I haven't stepped foot in a grocery store in 2 months, nor will I anytime soon. No way. H-E-B, everybody touching everything and putting it back, like no. Restaurants, they know how to sanitize. They know how to clean. They are inspected regularly. People are trained on this. Like I trust them way more. No offense to my grocery brethren, but restaurants I think know what to do when it comes to that. I want to talk a little bit more about some of the things we've been doing, and I won't go through all of this unless you have questions related to it. But one thing I want to talk about is sort of the reopening, right? Esme, I know you guys want to talk a little bit about that. 2 weeks ago, a little over 2 weeks ago, we got a group of independent and chain restaurant operators together along with some technologists to talk about what is it going to look like when restaurants reopen. We knew that Governor Abbott was going to come up with something eventually. Restaurants were going to open eventually. And we needed to have some sort of agreement in place to say this is what restaurants will do as they reopen. And so we created something called the Texas Restaurant Promise. And it is our promise to you as consumers, this is how we're going to sanitize. This is how we're going to clean. This is how we're going to space our tables apart to make sure that we are, respecting social distancing, doing everything we can to keep people safe, but also give them a dining out experience, which is what they need and frankly, what our economy needs as well. So that was created. And then when Governor Abbott last Monday came out, was it last Monday? Oh my gosh, yes. Came out with his order saying that he was going to allow restaurants to open at 25%. A lot of his guidance reflected that of the Texas Restaurant Promise, which we were really pleased to see. And so we altered our restaurant promise to reflect his guidelines as well as something from the Lieutenant Governor as well. And so we came up with something that really works. Within that Texas Restaurant Promise, there's also something really important, and that is the customer's promise back to restaurants. We need consumers and customers to understand that they play a really big role in this. We cannot keep people safe if they're not willing to respect our rules too. They have to understand that they need to socially distance. It's not required, but they should consider wearing face coverings or masks, something like that. And they have to, understand that it might be one in, one out in the bathroom, and maybe don't get angry at a restaurant during that. Maybe give us a little bit of grace and patience during this time because restaurants are trying to figure it out too. And so that's what we're asking for from customers. One of the other things in the restaurant promise includes a checklist. So whenever employees report for work, there's a checklist that they can go through to identify different symptoms or if they've been exposed to someone that has COVID-19 and, they would not come to work, at that point. A lot of people are incorporating this checklist that we built into their POS. You can go and get your point of sale system to automatically add that in whenever an employee is checking or logging in or checking in for their shift. It might pop up this checklist and ask them, are you feeling any of these kinds of symptoms? If so, please, indicate yes or no. We've translated that checklist and the whole restaurant promise into Spanish as well as Vietnamese, which are the most popular languages spoken here in Texas. If anyone wants to translate it into another language, we would be welcome. We would welcome their help with that. But we knew that getting it into Spanish was really important for our industry. And so we do have that available for people now as well. People ask a lot about taking temperatures of workers and taking temperatures of guests. And that's really up to the individual restaurant. We've seen some restaurants do that where they use the little infrared gun looking thing and they'll scan people's temples. Or we had a debate the other day, where was the best place to take the temperature? Is it here? Is it here? Whatever. As long as you're taking someone's temperature, it's a good idea. If you start to see elevated temperatures, that's a huge warning sign for COVID. Some restaurants are doing that. A lot more than I expected are doing that. Some are taking temperatures of guests as well. I had a teammate go to Pluckers recently, and there's a lady at the door dedicated to temperature checks. So, it's just up to each restaurant. And we include that in the guidelines. Consider this, consider that. Not a lot is mandated by the government or law by the government, but a lot of these are guidelines that we're hoping will keep people safe. And that's the general thing. I'll pause for a second, Esme, in case you have any questions related to that. And then we can talk more about some of the other projects we have going on.
Yes, thank you. And I do. So in regards to the existing, of course, promise, you mentioned that you in collaboration, of course, with the office of our governor, I do have the actual Reopen for Texas guide in front of me, and I know that they have designated 3 pages specifically for restaurants, and they have, different recommendations and, for customers, for the actual employees and for the facilities. As mentioned, restaurants could open up to a 25% of their capacity. We have here in the region, locally as well, have seen that many businesses have opted to not open their dining room yet, perhaps at phase 2, or until they feel more comfortable with the existing situation. Have you seen, overall through the state of Texas, restaurants opening? Or is it still the concern of course, of number 1 priority of flattening the curve and continue business as is? And, with that said, lastly, what is the recommendation from your association?
Sure. It's a delicate balance right now, right? Between wanting to flatten the curve and also keep people in business and keep people working. I think all of us realize at what cost are we willing to pay to keep the economy open, but also don't want to get everyone sick. And we want to make sure there's enough hospital rooms and respirators, for everyone. It is hard, and it is really hard to make a choice on that. And unfortunately, it's become inherently political too, which I think is really inappropriate. We are humans looking out for other humans, and that should be our focus. We did a quick poll after Abbott's order to find out about how many restaurants were planning to open on May 1st, which was also my birthday, by the way. It's totally appropriate for restaurants to reopen on my birthday. And about 45% said they would reopen, which meant that 55% said no. And we actually were surprised at that. We thought that it would be fewer restaurants that wanted to open. We really thought it would be a smaller number. And then we've also seen, we've taken a poll again this week to see if there are more people that reopened, and there are. But we're still sitting around 50%, basically. About half said they were comfortable to open and half did not. Our recommendation is, if you feel comfortable opening, please do it, and do it carefully. If you do not, just wait. Just wait. It's totally fine. But it also means, from the customer side, that only 25% of people should really be going out, right? If restaurants are only open at 25% capacity, we can't have half the population go into those restaurants. It's just not enough. So if you don't feel comfortable going out to restaurants either, don't. Just stay home, order curbside, order delivery. Those options are still available for people. I also think that it's important to remember that when you open a restaurant on a Friday, you can't always get all your products in time. he made the announcement, and then a few days later they were supposed to reopen. That's a quick turnaround for restaurants to bring back staff, to bring in all the products, from their broadliners and everything. That's a quick turnaround. A lot of people waited until Monday or Tuesday of this week to really reopen their doors.
And as I go through the actual checklist, and of course, as I visited and acquainted myself more with your website of the different guidelines and the recommendations, how can restaurant owners and/or, of course, management support their employees during COVID-19 health crisis? We understand that, unfortunately, due to the situation and as we see an increase in numbers, people in general may be concerned of going back to work.
Mm-hmm.
How can these restaurants, as of course we're reopening for business, assure their employees that they're doing the best on their end to make sure that they're not exposed?
Sure. I would say that it's really time to incorporate your employees into what you're looking at as a restaurant owner and manager. Show them the restaurant promise, show them the minimum health standard protocols, and ask them, is there something more we could be doing that would make you feel safe? I think it's completely appropriate to have that conversation with employees about that, and in a way that feels very inclusive. That's important. Remember, we are in this together. You cannot operate your restaurant without employees. If you want to bring back customers, you're going to need their partnership on this. And if your employees have ideas that they want to incorporate, they want to, do face coverings, they want to make sure that all menus are single service, get thrown away afterward, then find a way to incorporate that into your business if you can. Employees often have a lot of really great ideas because, they're dealing with customers every day, and we should listen to what they have to say. I'll be completely transparent though. There are some employees that have told us that they don't want to come back because frankly, they're making more money on unemployment than they would in the restaurant. This is a very real concern. We've had many conversations with Texas Workforce Commission about this. Even restaurants that are extremely progressive find that a lot of their employees are saying the same thing too. There is an option though. And Texas Workforce Commission has this great program called the Shared Work Program, where any company, actually not just restaurants, can bring back their employees on a small, not their full hours that they were working before. Texas Workforce Commission will make them whole and bring them back to, give them additional benefits on top of that small amount that they're getting from the restaurant. And then additionally, they would qualify for that $600 a week from the federal government too. So really, if employees can come back to work, maybe not at their full hours, 25% of their hours, Texas Workforce Commission can supplement that, then they get the extra $600. And then frankly, it ensures that there's a restaurant to come back to whenever all of this is over. That's the big threat. There may not be jobs for people to come back to if restaurants continue to close. So again, it's that delicate balance that we have to achieve.
So do you foresee, and I know we've heard it, of course, with the additional $600 available for those that, unfortunately are going through unemployment. We continuously ask ourselves, is it going to be a challenge to be able to, one, as you said, reopen for business, but have people come back to work? And how that, like you just said, how that would affect the stability of businesses as a whole, in this particular case, restaurants, because they are receiving more.
Yeah.
Instead of doing.
And one thing that's important to remember too for your business owner audience that's on this webinar and watching it somewhere else, and this is hard. If you offer your employees, your former employees, their jobs back or a job back that they are qualified for, and they turn it down, it is your requirement to report that to Texas Workforce Commission. That sounds really harsh, but that is the requirement. That's what Texas Workforce Commission says you have to do as an employer. If you offer someone a job and they do not accept it, you have to report that back to the commission. It is up to the employee to determine if they feel like it's safe for them to return to work. And that is an agreement between them and Texas Workforce Commission, right? So it's important to remember where to look for this kind of advice and who to turn to. If I were an employee, I would go and call Texas Workforce Commission. I know the phone lines are jammed, but do what you can to jump on or get advice from, local chambers as well on what to do. But that is your job as an employee, is to work with Texas Workforce Commission and determine your options. Now, if you do not feel safe going back to work, there are options for employees as well. And I would just recommend getting in touch with Texas Workforce Commission about that.
Thank you. Now, I don't know, I know I don't know if there's more to the presentation itself, because I know I can always, talk and be asking more and more questions. That's just by nature. But those are the questions that I had to address in regards to, of course, the reopening for Texas. Regarding the existing slide on this, on our screen. I did read about the Texas Restaurant Relief Fund. I do understand that the funds were depleted, but I do see it on the website. What is the Texas Restaurant Relief Fund? How was it utilized, and how is it still available, or what's the status?
Yeah, so we launched the Texas Restaurant Relief Fund about 5 weeks ago, I guess. One of my amazing colleagues decided to just tackle this project and go full bore on it, which is amazing. We've raised about $2.2 million for the fund, which is great. And we've been able to send out, as of earlier this week, just over 400 grant awards to restaurants. We have a specific set of criteria that we're looking for when it comes to restaurants. This really is for independent restaurants, not for chains, it's for small restaurants. So you have to qualify that way. And then we were originally saying we were going to do $5,000 grant awards, $5,000 grant awards, but we wanted to get more money out there to people. So we lowered that to $2,500 to $3,000, depending on the project. So that is going on constantly. We're sending out, as those promised checks from the donors arrive to TRA, we're sending it back out in form of grant awards. And it's truly amazing to see that, like, $2,500 may not sound like a lot, but for a small business, it can mean staying open another week or two, being able to pay your employees to come back, buying the next set of goods that you need to put together to send them out the door. It's really important. The application is open right now. The problem is we get, there's only so many of us, so we get overwhelmed. We open it up and then it's like, get tons of applications, and we have to close it so that we can go through that whole list, and we hate having to do that, but like, we have to be realistic about our ability to help all these people too. So we're still raising money. This project is not going to go away anytime soon. The recovery for restaurants could be 18 months, 2 years. So this is going to stay around for a long time. We're going to continue to raise money and continue to get awards out there.
And is this available for existing members only, or for any restaurant in Texas?
No, we recognize, I'm sure you guys did the same thing too as a membership organization, that you cannot limit your benefits or your communications to people that are only members during a time like this. This is a crisis. We opened up all channels that we had to everyone. Anyone who owns a restaurant in the state of Texas is welcome to apply for these benefits. They're welcome to use our mobile app that is typically only open to members. We have lots of these educations and town halls that are typically only open to members, but we've made them open to everyone. We want everyone to do well. We also want everyone to remember that TRA did a ton of work and has been doing a ton of work for 82 years for restaurants. So we are going to hope that people will join us, when the time comes. But for now, we've left that open to non-members as well. We've also suspended membership renewal payments for 2 months at this point. I think we're going to reopen that at the end of May or June, because we're a membership organization. We have to stay afloat too. But we knew it was important for people to not get a renewal letter asking for membership dues during this time. So we suspended that as well.
And like I said, I was actually going through your website and I saw the mobile app. And would you mind just repeating your website for those that are not acquainted with your website, so they can have access to this information? And as you mentioned, there's so much, guidelines and information and recommendations that this should be something that their employees should also have access to. It really is more of a support line, and a support system for restaurants and for, their employees. I myself, like I said, went in and I was going through it and I was telling Danielle, wait, I need to see more and I need to read more, because just a mobile app, and as you mentioned, we're a membership-driven organization, but we understand the importance and the value of serving everyone regardless of an active or inactive status. As we are an association, and we're, exclusively member driven, but we understand the importance of helping everyone during this pandemic. And of course, it's a health and economic crisis. And this is when we all come together. So what's the website again, please, for those that are not acquainted with the website?
Sure, it's txrestaurant.org. And you can get the app by going to txrestaurant.org/app, APP. So it's a really easy way to go and get it.
Wonderful.
I think I want to underscore something that you just said there, because it's something we've talked about a lot ever since this started, is the restaurants world is truly an ecosystem that is dependent on lots of different parties within it. Whenever we talk about restaurants and food service companies, it's not just those owners and those employees. It is the technology companies that service restaurants. It's the supply chain partners that bring the food to the restaurants. It's the people that empty out the oil at the end of the night. It's the truckers that deliver everything. A lot of this is dependent on restaurants. This is really where it happens. And so what we're looking at is really the destruction of an ecology, and it will have far-reaching effects for a very long time, which is why we tell people, if you want to support restaurants, please order curbside, order to go, order delivery from the restaurant. Maybe don't use a third-party app because they take a lot of money off of them, but use, order from the restaurant. Go in if you feel comfortable, order gift cards, that's fine too. Ordering swag, a lot of restaurants have t-shirts and cookbooks and things like that. Those are the way to support restaurants. And then of course, donating to the Texas Restaurant Relief Fund as well.
And now, how do you feel that COVID-19 has changed the way restaurants sanitize their business?
Oh, well, really, it's not too much more different. I think people are, typically whenever they do deep cleans, if they were only doing deep cleans once a week, now they're doing it every day. And they've changed the chemicals a little bit. We worked with a couple chemical companies to understand what people should be using that, maybe they weren't before, but it's not that much different from what they were using before. It's important to remember the CDC and WHO have said many times, this is not a foodborne illness at all. This is about surface areas and making sure you're disinfecting surface areas. Restaurants have always been pretty good at that. So they've really just stepped up their practices that they already had in place.
Now, are there any cleaning supplies needed specifically for restaurants that could keep the restaurant safe and used for sanitary purposes? Is there, I know that restaurants, of course, do a wonderful job and they sanitize often and they clean often, as mentioned, but is there any additional recommendations of really sanitizing your business?
There's some great we started something in addition to our coronavirus guidance page. We have we call it the Texas Restaurant Pandemic Directory, I think is what it's called. And on there, we have some chemical companies that are listed that offer additional sanitation that people can look into. But we're not recommending any one company over another or any chemical over another. That's really beyond my expertise, honestly.
Okay, and one other question, because I know, like I said, I know you have perhaps more slides, but how can restaurant professionals communicate the existing changes to the restaurants? I know social media nowadays is one of the strongest ways and platforms to utilize for free and communicate, their new hours of operations and of course, perhaps menus. But how can the restaurant better communicate with their customers of their existing efforts to continuously sanitize their business? Again, as you just said, the COVID-19 itself, it's through surface, and through touch, and we may think, or we may, of course, with the fear of being exposed, we understand that it's not, something that could be transmitted. I don't know if that's a proper word, to be honest with you, through food consumption.
Right. Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah.
What truly would be the best message out there for the consumer to understand of the limitations of being exposed through food consumption, more of the actual surface?
Yeah. Honestly, a lot of it has to do with peers not being afraid to correct other peers, right? So if you see something on Facebook where people are saying, don't go out to eat, you're going to catch it through a bowl of spaghetti or whatever. Like, people have to be, they can't be afraid to speak up and say, that's not quite right. And this is what restaurants are doing to go above and beyond. I think that honestly, attending webinars like this, getting the right information, read the media articles that are correct, that are not, sort of putting any sort of spin on this. Read the restaurant promise. I think that's a good way to understand what restaurants are doing to properly sanitize and keep people safe. It's really about education for the consumer. We're talking right now actually with some professionals in the industry that do PR and marketing, and how do you do that, in a careful way that doesn't sound tone deaf. And so we're going to do some additional education. I think this one is at the end of the month related to that. So it's really about educating yourself, which I know, consumers are not super great at, but I would ask for them to maybe step out a little from their comfort zone and look a little more deeper into the research.
I know that as we were discussing earlier, we have seen how restaurants have really, we see a different side, a very fun side too during these difficult times. We see different videos, we see TikToks. I mean, we see all kinds of, they're experts now in this, and they're enjoying it. Even though we're going through difficult times as a whole, people are enjoying it, and we see a different side, a very creative side. We see their passion. We see how they're devoted to their customers and to their community. Is there any other trends that you currently see throughout the state of Texas that our restaurants are doing? I know you mentioned the gift cards. Of course, we all want to support the purchase of gift cards to be utilized, in other establishments. But is there anything else that you see that you've noticed to keep really your business open?
Yeah, so there's been some really cool stuff going on where restaurants have prepared, where you go and pick them up curbside. They basically prepare these like kits, kind of think like HelloFresh or Blue Apron kind of kits, where then you take the kit home, and that night you jump online and the restaurant owner or chef is doing a video that you can watch along with your friends or your family on like how to prepare it. Or they have recorded videos that you can watch together and prepare food together. So they really are trying to reinvent, what does this experience look like, during this age where we have to keep each other distant. And honestly, it's kind of great. I mean, Mother's Day is coming up this weekend. That is the biggest dining out day of the year, hands down. Generally, a third of the entire population goes out to eat on Mother's Day, which is an enormous amount of people. With not being able to go out to restaurants, or if you go out to dine at restaurants, understand there's going to be a really long wait. At 25% capacity, they're just not able to handle the kind of traffic. So a lot of restaurants are being really creative about packages that they're putting together for curbside and to go, where you can order in advance, cakes and pies and brunch items, mimosa kits, that kind of thing, and get that to your mom, or, she can go pick it up or something like that. So restaurants are really thinking again about what does this dining out experience look like, and how can they augment that and make it feel special. I mean, restaurants, they're hospitality to the core, right? That it means a lot to them, and they understand that restaurants are where memories are made. That's where life is celebrated, and we can still have that, maybe just not inside the restaurant as much as we want to.
So with that, how do you think the ability of actually having alcohol in our restaurants, for those that have now the ability to serve alcohol or sell, not serve but sell, do you think that has been successful overall through the restaurants? And then do you foresee that we're going to continue that at least for a long while?
Fingers crossed. That would be great. That would be great. I mean, the delivery we have no matter what. We passed that law in 2019. The governor signed it. That's done. As far as to go, I mean, we all saw Governor Abbott's tweet the other day about maybe keeping it forever. I hope he's serious. That would be great. It's definitely something that we're looking at for the 2021 legislative session to see what that might look like. Whenever he reopened restaurants at 25%, he did not repeal his alcohol to go or curbside order, which he could have. So we were very pleased to see that. Yes, it has been, frankly, it has been the only thing keeping a lot of it's still very tricky. Navigating the TABC regulations around alcohol sales is very, very complicated. We have, expertise on staff where we can answer people's questions related to that, or you can call TABC. But it has been very successful. People are able to do these kits. They're selling beer and wine for people. If you have a beer and wine license versus a mixed beverage license, you can also sell growlers and crowlers to go of beer, which is helping our breweries. Because like I mentioned earlier, this is truly an ecosystem. Restaurants shut down, beer's not getting sold, right? We have all these tanks of great craft beer all over the state that's just going to go stale. And so, we're trying to be creative and figure out how can we get that out the door for people too, to save not only restaurants, but also breweries and distilleries that service restaurants.
I know Danielle, and I failed to mention Danielle. I apologize when we began our webinar. For those that have yet to meet Danielle, Danielle is our Director of Marketing and Programs, and she's wonderful. And she's the one behind the Zoom and going live on Facebook. She keeps our world going here. I know that we may have some questions through our chats, Danielle. And if we do, Anna, we can address them at this point. Should that be fine with you?
Sure, absolutely.
Maybe give me a quick moment. So Anna, do you cook?
I do, I eat out more than I cook, but I am a good cook. My grandmother taught me how to cook, but I'm more of a baker, to be completely honest. But yeah, I do cook at home occasionally, but right now my fridge is filled with restaurant food, like just jam-packed of to-go containers, essentially.
You see, that's not my forte. So I'm a true supporter of all my restaurants in the area. I go pick up all the time, and and I love that they can cook because I cannot. I'll tell you that when I was a little child, I am not joking. I did burn the house down, but that was not cooking. But I was pretending to do something else, and I accidentally did. Luckily, it was just one room. But that's why I don't get close to the kitchen nor to the stove. So I do appreciate all the hard work from everyone that works in our restaurants, from a small restaurant to a larger chain. Everyone, they all do a great job to keep the economy going. Like you said, they're second and most largest number of jobs being created. At this moment, Danielle has just mentioned to me we don't have any questions, which is I think great. That speaks that it was such a great presentation. Of course, there's so much to talk about and so much to learn from your end. Anna, any other thoughts, any additional comments that you would like to, or I know you just went to the other slide. I just saw it. I hadn't seen it.
Sure. This is just the last slide. This is just basically what we're doing right now. We're continuing to create some great education to help people, doing these great town hall sort of things with chambers of commerce. Yesterday, I did one with the Lubbock Chamber. I know my colleague is right now doing one with the LaGrange Chamber. So we'll be doing more of these. So thank you so much for inviting us to participate. If you have relationships with local mayors or city councils, this is what we're asking for. We're asking for, help, relief when it comes to taxes and fees. We need chambers and community organizations to find a way to create grants for small businesses. Even small micro grants like $500 or $1,000 could mean a lot to restaurants. And then we're also looking for commercial rent payment relief. So if you have relationships with mayors and city council, ask them about these things. These are the things to ask them about. And then we are still working with our federal senators and representatives right now on fixing the Paycheck Protection Program, the PPP. There were some things that didn't quite work for restaurants and small business owners, so we're hoping to get those fixes. And then just, pay attention to what's going on. We are active on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram and LinkedIn. And we do have a TikTok, but it's just because I said they could make one, but it's really very silly. Don't get your information there. But we're more than willing to, we do a lot of one-on-one counseling with people, emails and phone calls throughout the day too. So if you, get in touch with your local chamber, they know how to get in touch with us. We're more than happy to help.
Anna, thank you very much on behalf of everyone that's watching, our audience, and of course, we're very proud of the work that you do. Thank you for assisting our businesses, our restaurants, and thank you for being there. We understand the importance of your membership but we also appreciate that your association, as you mentioned, has, kind of sort of have a deferred program for now for the 2 months, and also is serving everyone as a whole. And like, again, this speaks to how we Texans come together during the most difficult times, how we're here for our community, for our neighbors, and we're all in it together. And we can also, be able to hopefully soon pass this and be open and ready for business. We started with 25%. We have the, soon we'll see we, are able to open at 50 and then 75 and then 100. But most importantly, I think we all mirror the same sentiments, is to really follow the CDC guidelines, to make sure that we keep our social distancing, to make sure that we do our best to protect ourselves, our neighbors, and our families. So again, we thank you from the bottom of our hearts. Thank you for what you do. And I know this won't be the last time that we get to talk, because while you were talking about so many different things, I was already making notes of what shall we do next. And that chambers, that's what we do all the time. We're always thinking, what's next? But any final thoughts on your end? Any recommendations for our audience today and for restaurants?
No, I mean, go and check out our website, txrestaurant.org, and dine out. Please go get curbside, go eat at your favorite restaurant. Talk to the restaurant owner, talk to the employees, tell them that you're thinking of them. That means so much to people right now. We are all in this together, and we're very interconnected, as we know now. So I think just being kind to each other is really the best thing we can do right now.
Thank you very much. And thank you to everyone who's watching us. We will go ahead and, of course, share this information through our social media platforms. We invite you to continue to follow your local chamber at brownsvillechamber.com, through our social media, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn. We're here to support you during these difficult times. And do call us, 956-542-4341. Your chamber is here to support you. Have a great afternoon. Thank you. Thank you, Anna.
Bye, Yasmin.